Hello, I'm Alexa. Welcome back to my channel. I've learned one of the most challenging things about starting something new is learning what all of the different words mean. And in the UX design field, we've got a lot of confusing words. In this two-part video series, we'll be going over what some of these words mean, and I'll be trying my best to give you some more concrete definitions. My hope is that this can also help you start asking better questions, especially to the other designers who are within the other design communities that you were a part of. Something I've noticed that doesn't seem super clear to a lot of new people is what the difference is between UX design, UI design, and product design. And I can make you a video simply explaining my answer to this question. I have in the past. Hi everyone, my name is Alexa. Today the question is, what is product design? But I'm just one person. I'd rather we figure things out together. So I reached out to a handful of my designer friends to help me clear things up. And don't worry, I'll give you my 2 cents about all of this as well. But first, let's hear from the group.
Hey everyone, my name's Alexis Lucio.
My name's Conway Anderson, and I'm a product designer.
I currently spend my day as an accessibility and inclusive design lead at Splunk.
Hi everyone, my name is Jian Wei.
Hey everyone, Ching here.
In the past, I've built and managed both design and product teams.
I'm a senior product designer at Loop Commerce, where we're creating the ultimate gifting platform.
And today I'm going to talk to you about the differences between UI, UX, and product design. Now they all have different roles in the design industry. So let's talk about UI and UX first. UI is basically user interface and UX is the user experience. Now think about when you go to a restaurant, there is a host and server. So the purpose of the host is to greet you, bring you to your table, and the purpose of a server is to take your orders, make sure that your food is you're well served in a restaurant. Now both of them works in the restaurants but have different purpose. So same for UI and UX, you will notice bigger companies, they tend to hire both of the specialties of UI and UX. One focus on the user interaction, meaning from one screen to the other, how is the user flow look like, draft out the wireframe. Now for UI designer, they care about the user interface, how the button is going to look, how the UI component is going to look like. That's the differences between the UI and UX. Now let's talk about product design. Today, you will see most of the designers in a tech company call themselves product designer because regardless of the practice, UI and UX, they will do whatever it takes to make the product experience better.
I'm really excited to be answering this question as someone who's been a UX designer and a product designer before. As an added bonus, I'll also be talking about each of these roles in terms of how they could work with an accessibility designer and what I would go to them for. To me, a UX designer is someone who's able to pick up a pain point from a researcher or from their own research and go ahead and create a workflow that satisfies the user's needs. And ideally, it's done in a way that's efficient, that's clear, that maybe meets the business needs. Now, as an accessibility designer, I would work with a UX designer to determine things like making sure that the air state is compliant, making sure that the empty state is something that can still be utilized by things like a screen reader, and ensuring that there's meaningful links to text. A UI designer is someone who doesn't necessarily need to know about a user flow, but instead enhances the current experience through things like colors, fonts, legibility, making sure that things are visually clear. Now, from an accessibility standpoint, I would go to this person to create different ways to differentiate between things like patterns, shapes, colors. I would also go to them for things like alt text, what a zooming and resizing experience would be like, and making sure that they're matching ARIA labels with the things that are defined in a design system if they work with one. Now, a product designer is someone who can take something from end to end. It encompasses things like research, business strategy, visual design, UX design, ensuring that they can also not only work with engineers, but with other business partners to make it all related to one another. A product designer can be a UI, UX, dual researcher, and on top of that, understand the business. In the past, I've usually seen product design as something like a startup, which is smaller, where you need to be able to have many skills in order to succeed in your role, versus reserving things like UI and UX designer at larger companies where it doesn't make sense for a lot of different people to be doing a lot of different things. And instead, you're hired based on your specialty. Now, from an accessibility standpoint, I could work with a product designer to do things that I've mentioned in visual design, in UX design, in addition to maybe working on larger scale things like keyboard interactions, ARIA labels, working with the devs, and doing some of the testing as well.
The reason I'm here is to help demystify what is product design, what is user experience design, and what is user interface design. I remember when I was first starting off in the industry, it was completely confusing me of what these three things meant. Sometimes I heard UX/UI design, sometimes I heard you are one or others, sometimes I heard product designers mean all these three things combined. First of all, I did a definition search of what is product to begin with. What I found on Google was it's to bring forth something. When I hear that, I really think back to what I do every day. I really bring things to life. And the way I do that is through specific methodologies learned in the human-centered design practice of user experience. When it comes to these three key terms, what really matters most is your understanding of how these components fit together to shaping what we do every day. In the software context, to bring forth something, we really need to understand people's behaviors, needs, and what kind of problems we can solve for them. We are here to understand those needs and connect the appropriate solution to their behaviors and the way they perceive of the world. In essence, user experience design helps craft the understanding and thinking through the functionality of the product. User interface design brings the visual and the feelings behind the whole product design process. At the same time, product design wraps around all of these two concepts, including other areas like research, strategy, analytics, and so forth. When you think about how these three things come together, you have product design as sort of the umbrella function of what we end up creating. We're here to design products. User experience is the layer within that helps guide the functionality and the thinking and the research around how something works. User interface design guides the feeling and the aesthetics wrapped around the entire product. And when we bring both of these together, we produce something. We bring forth something that hopefully delights and makes a positive impact on people's lives. So in short, product design is to bring forth something. The combination of user experience and user interface is to deeply understand those needs and translate those into functions and the look and feel of how this whole thing works.
So the question that Alexa asked me was, what is UX design, what is UI design, and what is product design? And it's a surprisingly hard question to answer. I think a lot of people get confused by these terms because in reality, there's a lot of overlap between the three. To me, these are really all part of experience design. And it really depends on the context and organization that you're in terms of how these will be used. But there are some differences that I see in the common uses for each term within software design. And I think a lot of these differences come from what are the more common responsibilities associated with job titles that include these terms. So for UX design, I see more emphasis on research and prototyping to discover insights and create alignment between what the user wants and needs and the proposed product or solutions that are being designed. There's less focus on high fidelity design deliverables and more focus on the user. Within UI design, I see that often being used to describe the components and interactions that we design, the details of the product. There's less focus on research and more focus on craftsmanship. For product design, it seems like this is often used to suggest a mix of what we might associate with UI, UX, and product management. By comparison to UX, there's often more focus on high fidelity design and navigating the trade-offs between the user's goals, the business's goals, and the capability of the team. And by comparison to UI design, there's more focus on how you frame and understand the problem or goal that you're seeking to address with your design process. But again, really, you'll see these terms be used in different ways, and there's a ton of overlap between all three.
Okay, so this is where I'm at with the definitions. UX design stands for user experience design. In general, this term is often used to describe the interactions that are intentionally created to connect humans and technology. You can kind of think about UX design as the nuts and bolts of a machine that need to be put in place in a very specific way in order for it to work. UI design stands for user interface design, and with digital products, UI is the surface that we all look at and touch to interact with the technology. It's like the face of the digital products, apps, and websites we make and then use. And then there's product design. In short, I think product design is an old term turned new again. We've always been creating products like chairs and cameras and things, but what was new recently was that more products are now being created in a digital format. So in places where there are a lot of people building new digital products and creating new companies, like in San Francisco, there became a need for more design-minded people to help in creating the foundation of these products. So product designers also help with strategic thinking and understanding of the business. Some say product design is more of a combination of UX, UI, and product strategy, but at the end of the day, there's still going to be nuance. We may not all agree. For example, I've often found the titles UX designer and product designer to be pretty much interchangeable. At this point, they both seem to be the role of a generalist, someone who oversees all aspects of the UX design process from ideation to final designed solution. I'd also like to mention that the role of a UX researcher is its own discipline. Often product designers will participate in UX research, but this role does require unique skills and mastery. I haven't found there to be a need for people to work exclusively in UI design anymore, especially not in the Bay Area. You will find there to be a lot more companies hiring for product designers who have a design systems background or who are looking to work on design system teams specifically. If you have a graphic design background and you're trying to switch into product design, this could be an interesting career path for you. My friend Matthew Liu, who I studied graphic design with at CCA, is an excellent design systems designer now. I've interviewed him in the past about all of this as well, so if you're curious, make sure to check it out. And so to kick things off, why did you decide to study graphic design and how did you end up at CCA?
I studied graphic design because I was actually interested in...
And that is going to be it for this first video of defining UX design. If you haven't already, this is your very official reminder to subscribe to my channel, especially if you thought this video was helpful and want to see the next one. That would be a really great sign to subscribe. Anyway, I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.